Hello everybody, welcome to the class. In the chat box just type in where you're from please. Alrighty, let's see, we've got Claude says he's in Quebec, Lillian is in Ontario, John, London, Dixon, Canada, New York, lots of Canadians today, that's awesome. California, Bermuda, Auckland. Claude says I'm kind of pale, yes. When I heard I was going to be live on the internet, I got such a fright. All the color disappeared out my face. What can I do? Ella is in New Zealand, South Carolina, Australia, Newcastle, England. That's really great. We've got a huge bunch today, so I'm just going to give it a minute or two to make sure everybody that's going to join us for the live show is in. And that's me. Hi guys. Alrighty. It seems like everybody's in, so let's do an official welcome. Hi guys, thank you very much for joining me on the Portrait Painting Techniques course. 6 very busy weeks, but 6 weeks which you are going to learn so much that it's going to take you 6 months to fully take in all this information. We've got a really busy time, so what's going to happen is I've only got 12 hours to show you as much as I possibly can, so I may go reasonably fast through the course, but I know you've got the replays to watch afterwards, so I want to make sure I get all the information across to you so that you can review it as often as you like. So the first thing we're going to do now is just get a feel for what are we going to be doing over the next 6 weeks. Over the next 6 weeks we're going to be following in the footsteps of Renoir, because he was a very famous portrait artist, and I'm sure he wasn't always a very good portrait artist. So we're going to take a look and see how he progressed and see how we progress. So we'll take a look at some of his first portraits to see what they look like. Then we're going to follow along the same road to learn the same lessons that he learned along the way. And hopefully at the end of the day we'll achieve the same goal, and that is to paint realistic portraits. Now before we start, like I said earlier, it's a really busy schedule that we've got for this course. I've only got 12 hours, so I will be going at a reasonably fast clip, but when you do your course, don't try and keep up. Follow at your own pace that's comfortable for you. It's more important that you understand what I'm explaining and you understand each concept before you move on to the next step. You'll find that the order that I'm going to do the lessons in is generally going to be the order that you would paint in when you're painting a portrait. So it's good if you can follow the process or the steps that we take them in. Alright, most importantly, obviously, relax, enjoy the course, there's no stress. Remember, we're doing this for fun, not because we have to. Alright, what we're going to learn over the next few weeks is we're going to learn all about the anatomy of the face, how everything fits together. We're going to learn what photos make good portraits, because you can take a beautiful photograph and if you paint it, it's not necessarily going to make a good portrait painting. Then we'll obviously learn how to mix our skin tones and how to match them so that they look just like your subject. And the first few weeks we're going to learn to paint the individual features of the face, and then after that we'll learn how to tie it all together to form a realistic portrait. So it's going to be great fun. The goal is I want you at the end of the course to be able to paint any portrait, not just the ones that we're going to do in the course. This is not a monkey see, monkey do course. So that means to achieve that goal, we're going to have to learn some theory along with the practical. Otherwise, you're not going to understand what we are doing while we're painting. So what I want you to do is, you can follow and paint along, get your canvases out, get your paints out, and for sure paint along with me. That's part of the fun here. But after the class, watch the replays as often as you need. Make sure you understand everything. At the end of the class, I'm going to be giving you a set of notes. So use those notes as your companion while you're painting, because you'll find that because I've only got 12 hours worth of video, there's a lot more in the notes than what I can show you here in the live class. So make sure you go through those notes afterwards. Now, just a little word of advice. When you start out painting portraits, our first impression or the first thought is, yes, I'm going to paint my daughter or my wife or my sister or, you know, kids or something like that. In the beginning, don't paint people that you really intimately familiar with, that you know very, very well. The reason for that is we know those people so well that a slightest little bit that you're off on your painting, you'll see it a mile away. Now, what I want you to do is paint people that you don't know. So use the reference photos from the course. All the photos that I'm using are either copyright free, so you're allowed to use them and not give credit when you've painted them, or the ones you'll find I've given credit with them. So that person has given us permission to use those photographs in the course, and we're allowed to paint them, but you have to give credit. So if I've given credit, please you also do the same. Now, when you paint strangers, because you don't know that person so well and you can't notice the small little places where you're off, it makes it a lot easier. It gives you a little leeway to make some mistakes along the way without being too hard on yourself, and you'll still get a really good likeness of that person. Alright, let's take a look at one of Renoir's first portraits. What do you think about that portrait there, guys? Not particularly good, is it? Now, how do your portraits that you've painted up to this point compare with Renoir's first portraits? Let me know. Pop it into the chat box and tell me how it goes. Now, let's move on and take a look. Where did Renoir end up? Wow, that's pretty amazing, eh? He's got excellent coloring, beautiful proportions, the composition of the painting is correct. Even though I've cropped it a little bit, the original painting was beautifully composed, absolutely stunning. So let's hope we can get you guys to portrait heaven as well by the end of the course. The first thing we've got to chat about is the features the features of the face. So let's go over here and go there. Alrighty, we need to know what we call everything. Now, not necessarily because it's the correct medical term that we need to use, but just so that we're on the same page. So I'm going to give you what we call an artist's anatomy lesson. In other words, what I call each feature of the face. You could call it something different, as long as you know throughout the course that the terms that I'm using, you know what they are and where they are, so that we're all on the same page at the end of the day. So the first one is, we'll start at the top of the face and we'll work our way down. The first one is the hairline. That's where the hair starts and the forehead ends. Then we have the forehead itself. Next up is the eyebrow, and underneath it is obviously the eye. I haven't bothered marking that. moving on to the nose, we've got the root of the nose, and that is right here in this little indentation in between the eyes. Then you've got the bridge of the nose, which is this length over here. And then the tip of the nose, which is this little ball piece on the end over there. The nostril itself, you can't see it on this painting, but that's the actual hole of the nose. That's called the nostril. And the flap of skin that forms the nostril itself, we call the nostril wing. Okay, let's get rid of those. Okay, moving down to the mouth. Let's move down over there, and we can even zoom in a little bit more. Maybe it'll make it a bit easier for you. Okay, we've done that one. Alright. Underneath the nose, we've got what we call the upper lip. Now, we have to make a distinction between the top lip and the bottom lip. These two together over here form the mouth, right? So we can't call this a top lip and that a top lip. So we'll call the lip that you kiss with, we'll call that one the top lip, and the area of skin above it, we'll call that the upper lip. Then below the bottom lip, we'll call that one the lower lip. Then moving further down, we've got the chin and the neck. Then there's two other features that I also just want to point out, which I think is important to know their names. The first one is this little valley over here in between the two halves of the upper lip. That valley is called the philtrum. So when we get to mouths, it's an area we need to concentrate on, so we need to know what to call that area. And the second one is this little laugh line over here. I call it a furrow. I don't know what you call it, but that's just the name that I'll be using throughout the course. Okay, now what I want to do is, let me zoom a little out so we can see the whole face again. I want to show you how the different features of the face, why they look the way they do. To do that, we're going to have to peel away the layers of skin. So what I've done is I've superimposed the skull over our little girl over here. This little girl, by the way, was painted by one of my students, Dr. Monty van der Westhuizen. Really good artist. Alright, so I'm going to show you what the skull looks like. It looks like that, so it's not a perfect fit, but it is close enough to give us an idea of what goes where. Now I want you to take a look at the eyes. You see over here, you've got that recess where your eyeball fits in. So now let's go over and take a look at the eyes themselves. Okay, you see this recess over here and over here? So that was formed by that eye socket on the skull. Let's take a look at the furrow over here. Let's go and find that on the skull itself. You see you've got this cheekbone, and then you've got this big dent over here, or this big, yeah, I suppose you can call it an indentation there, right? So that there, it's because your skin is wrapping around the skull, and it's naturally denting in over there. The same with your eyebrows. Go over here. So you see it's got the little raised area on the skull, and that's why you get that little highlight over here by your eyebrows. You see that? So it's really nice if you know what the skull looks like. That helps you to place and see why each feature is on the face in the areas that it should be. Now I'm going to have a quick just look over here by the chat box. Alright, Lenovo is asking, will I be putting each lesson a few days after completed live? Yes, for sure I am. It takes me about 2 days after each class just to get it edited and uploaded. I do email you guys when it is up. And Val says she hasn't tried to paint a portrait yet. This will be her first, so that's wonderful, Val. So there's no bad habits that you need to get rid of. Alright, so let's move on and take a look. Why do each of us look unique when we've all got the same features on our face? The reason for that is although technically each side of our face is symmetrical, we're all a little off symmetry. Okay, so let me see if I can show you. Let's see. I want to see if I can show you guys a photo that I've taken, and I've flipped it so that the face is symmetrical, and you can see how funny it looks. I just want to quickly find it here. The center dude over here is what the guy actually looks like. So now I've taken the left hand side of his face and I've flipped it over so to make him symmetrical. Look how skinny his face looks over there. Now I think we can do the same with the other side. Looks like a real, I don't know, I suppose his nickname would be Butch in this case, eh? Look totally different. So that just shows you how off symmetry our faces are. Now I can show you all three at the same time. Quite amazing, eh? So maybe what you can do is try it with a photograph of your face and see what that looks like. So that is what makes us unique. So when you're painting somebody, you must look for those little differences where the person's face is off symmetry so that they're not absolutely perfect. Alright, there we've got all the little features of the face on the skull that I've marked there. It is in your manual. Okay, let's go back to our other model again. What I want to do now is show you the average proportions where each feature on the face is positioned, and that'll allow you to be able to see where the person is off symmetry, where he's off the average. Now, funny enough, the most amazing thing is that your face can be measured by the width of your eye. Every facial feature that we've got can be measured according to that width. So you take the outside edge of the eye and to roughly around the tear duct. You take that and you form a square out of it, perfect square. And that's going to become our unit of measure to check the proportions of the face. So just to give that block a name, I've called it a base block. So if I'm talking about a base block, then you'll know what I'm talking about. So what you do is we're going to form a cross over the face, and that'll help us measure the different features. So the first thing you do is take 5 of these base blocks and place them next to each other, with the center one aligned with the center of the face. So in these measurements here, the face is looking 100% forward, so not up, not down, not tilted to the left or to the right, to get these little measurements right so that we've not got perspective problems messing us around. So place it in the center like that, then you move it up and down until the center of those blocks horizontally is in line with one of the pupils. Remember, one eye could be higher or lower than the other, so just line it up with one of the pupils. That's fine. From there, you're going to add 4 blocks up and 4 blocks down from the center. And I think you can already start to see a few of those features slot into place. Now, if your subject's face is a little bit tilted to the side, then just use the center point over here and just rotate it so that you get this center line over here running down the center and that running along in line with that pupil over there. I'm not going to go through every single feature. They are all in your manual. I'm just going to go through the ones that I feel is the most important and the ones that you'd really need to construct a face. Oops, went down too far. Okay, the eyes are going to fit roughly in the two side blocks with, as you can see, there's 1 eye width space between the two eyes. The width of your face is going to fit in the next two blocks roughly in the outside halves. The tip of the nose is 1 block down at the bottom, and from there another block down you get the center of the mouth. Now you can see in our model, see how we can immediately see his mouth is a little bit lower than the rest, and if we look at the overall picture of our model, we can see he's got a longer face than normal. You see there? So there's one of those little off symmetry features already showing. Right, let's get to the right place again. Now the outside width of the mouth is usually between either the inside edge or the outside edge of the pupil. So in average it's going to be around here somewhere in line with the pupil. And Dennis is so happy I said that. But it's somewhere between here. It depends on how big your mouth is, obviously, eh? Alright, your bottom chin is another block down. It'll be somewhere in that block. It all depends on how round or how long the person's face is. The same goes with the top of the head. It's going to be in that top block somewhere. Then the hairline. The hairline is 2 blocks up from the center. See, nicely on that line over there. So some people that's got a receding hairline, that it won't end up on the line. It will gradually go up and up and up and up and up like that. Ask Dennis, he knows all about that. Alright, the position of the ears. If you draw a line through the pupils and the center of the upper lip, that's going to give you the height of the ears. Now I just want to quickly zip back so we can see all our blocks again. So I want to show you. Let's see, it's over here. So if I take from the center of there to the center of there, it's 1, 2 blocks. So your ear height is 2 blocks. Let's take a look at that from the side. See that? So in line with the pupils and in line with the center of the mouth. So seeing as we're at the side of the face, let's stick to it. And let's go and see how do we measure all the different features on the side of the face. We now know our ear is two base blocks high, right? In other words, 2 eye widths high. And we also know where it fits over here and over here. So we can use that knowledge to construct our cross over on the face over here as well, like that. So what you do is you position the center block in line with the pupils, and you can also align it with the tip of the nose, because we know both of those, we know their positions on our cross. Now let's get the full width of the face. So what you're going to do is, if you take a line from your eyebrow and draw it horizontally backwards, along that line you're going to find the full width of the face. Now it's going to end up somewhere between block 6 and block 7. All again depending on the person itself and the ethnicity and stuff like that. So somewhere between block 6 and 7 you'll get the back of the head. That one's a bit difficult to judge sometimes, especially because, like in this case, you can see I've overlaid a skull over here. Your you've got a big body of hair at the back, especially with the ladies. You've got a big body of hair, so it's not always that easy to judge. But if you've got a body of hair, it doesn't particularly matter anyway, does it? Alright, the angle of the jawbone is roughly 30 degrees. Again, it differs from person to person, but that's the sort of the average angle. And you can see it nicely on the overlaid skull there, right? Now we can start drawing in figuring out where to position the neck. Now here's quite an interesting measurement, and that is how far your neck over here starts away inside, or how far your face protrudes past your neck. I think that's probably the better way of saying it, hey? And that is, if you draw a line from your lip, or actually from the center of the mouth, our model's mouth is a little bit higher than normal. We can see that over here. You see that? Her mouth is a little bit higher than average. So you're going to draw a line from there and extend it down past the chin. Then you follow along your jawline, just extend that line until they meet. You see it meets just past the edge of the chin, but they form a little corner over there. Now that distance and that distance are exactly the same, or roughly the same. To get the angle of your neck, you draw a line at 90 degrees at right angles to your jawbone. The back of the neck measure roughly 3 blocks, 3 base blocks, 3 eye widths back, and that's going to give you the width of your neck. So all that's left now is for us to sort out the positioning of our ear. So let's find out how far it is back. So from your tip of the nose, it's got 4 blocks back. The ear itself is, depending on the tilt of your ear, some people have got flat ears and some people's ears are a little bit more stand out further from the face. So depending on that angle there, it's going to end up somewhere between 1 to 1.5 blocks wide. The last thing we need to do is figure out at what angle the ear sits at. You notice that? You see the ear doesn't sit perfectly upright, it sits at a bit of an angle. That's because of where it sits on the skull itself. So let's take a look over here. You've got your jawbone running up there and up there like that, and behind the jawbone is where your ear sits. Now that's one of the classic mistakes the guys make. They place the ear too far forward. So always remember your ear sits behind the jawbone. Now the way you do it is, to measure that angle, is you notice that the ear spans a height of 3 blocks. Even though it's only 2 blocks high, it fills up 3 blocks when you align it with your center cross, like we've done before. Draw a line from the bottom of the one block to the opposite end of the top of the other block like that. Then just move it across, and that's the angle that your ear sits at. I think what we can do now is, let's go and take a look at that one of those early paintings of Renoir, and let's see if he managed to get all these little features correct in his painting. So what I've done is I've overlaid a cross over there. Let's take a look. Look at his eyes. They span 2 blocks. They are ginormous. So they are just absolutely, totally wrong. Look at the space between the eyes. They're way too far apart. And this huge gap he's got on each side of the head. So her poor head is way too round. It looks like a soccer ball. And look at the mouth. Look at the angle of her mouth. Because her face was tilted, he forgot about that when he painted the mouth. And look there, he's painted the mouth perfectly horizontal. Again, a classic mistake when the guys don't know all these proportions and angles and things like that. So it's a classical amateur looking painting that. The next thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at some color mixing. But before we do that, I'm going to hop over to the chat box and see if there's any questions for me. The next thing that we need to chat about is color mixing. So let's go and have a quick look and see how did Renoir do with these color mixes. These initial some of his first paintings, you can see the coloring was way off. This here is one of his later paintings. You can see the quality of it. It's actually very well painted. But now take a look at the coloring of the skin. It's not particularly good, is it? So I wonder why Renoir battled so much with his color mixing. Let's take a look at a few faces, and while we're at it, let's pick up a few of those colors. So what I've done with each of these faces is I've picked up the highlight, a middle color, and a shadow color on each. Now let's go and take a look at those different colors, because I think you can see there, each one of those little faces that we've got down there, the colors are different. They're not the same. So there's those little colors that I've picked out. So we've got some pinkies and browny colors, sort of colors you'd expect. But now look over here. Here's a blue. And there's like an orangey color. There's a purple. Never seen anybody with a purple face before. So what's going on here? Let's try and figure this one out. The first thing is your skin itself. Because you've got blood coursing through the veins underneath the skin, your skin is affected by temperature. So do this little test at home. Take a warm bowl of water and a cold bowl of water and put the one hand in the one bowl and another hand in the other bowl, and you're going to notice that after a few minutes when you take your hands out, the one is almost spider white and the other one is blood red. So our skin color changes with the temperature. Our skin color also changes with our mood and our emotional state. But there's also something else that affects our skin color, and that is the fact that our skin itself is actually reflective. So here I've shown you a photograph where it's been done on purpose. So the photographer shine different colored lights on the model to get that reflected light bouncing off of the face to have a nice modern effect. But now let's take a look when it's going to mess us around as artists when we're painting. On this photo over here, you can see how the hair color, the red hair color, is reflecting off her skin. Look how red it is in those areas there. If this model had brown hair, it wouldn't be red there, it would be more brown. And that's where the problem comes in when we're painting from photographs. Let's take a look at this photo over here. Nothing wrong with the photo as far as the photo is concerned. The guy's captured the moment. So yeah, that's all good. But for painting, for painting this photo, it's not going to make a very good portrait, because you've got shadows all over the show where you're not expecting them. The highlights have been totally washed out because of the bright sunlight. So you're not going to get a very good painting out of this one. So you could still paint this painting, but what you would then want to do is take another photograph of this person when the lighting is better as well, and use that as your reference. Here's another example of a photograph that's been taken outdoors. So I'm not sure if this little girl was playing in the sun a little bit too much and now mom has slapped a hat on her head, or it's just because of the time of the day. But look how red her skin is. So if we had to paint her with exactly those colors, not going to look very good. So what about if we go and take the photographs nice and posed in a studio? Let's take a look what happens then. Look at those colors, absolutely washed out. If we had to paint this lady using the colors in the photograph, I'm sure she's going to look pretty dead and lifeless because it looks like there's no blood coursing through her veins. What's happened is, with a posed photograph like this, the guys use multiple lights to get a nice even tone across the entire area of the face. So that means that all your highlights and your shadows tend to become washed out. You got your highlights aren't quite as bright as they need to be, and your shadows tend to completely disappear because you don't want those shadows in a posed photograph. So let's go and take a look at what does make a good photograph. What would make a good painting photograph? Take a look at this one over here. Even though it's been posed in the studio, it's got the lighting is correct. So we've got nice highlights, but there's still color in them. They haven't been washed out. Lovely mid-tone colors to the skin for us to work from, and they help us to show the molding of the face. Then look at these lovely shadows. Nice, lovely deep shadows. So in other words, we've got a really good tonal range from lights all the way through to darks, and that makes a good portrait painting or a good portrait photograph. So how are we going to get those ideal lighting conditions? What you're going to do is, you ideally want the light from the side 45 degrees and 45 degrees from the top. That's going to give you optimal highlights, and it's going to give you optimal shadows. But obviously that's all the theory. When you're taking photographs, it doesn't always work like that, eh? So how do you check your photograph to make sure that it's going to give you a nice painting? What we do is we use a tonal checker. So I've got a tonal range from black all the way through to white, a continuous tone over here. And over here I've broken it up into 10 steps. So you place it over your photograph like this and check. You want highlights, which here between value 9 to 7 will be your highlight areas. So you want some of those in your photograph. And you want some shadows, which will be 0 to 2. And then you also want some mid-tone values, which is normally here between 3 and 6. So place it over your photograph and move your tonal checker around until you can see you've got highlights, midtones, and shadows in the painting. In an ideal world, what you would do is you take your photograph and convert it to a black and white. That makes it a lot easier for you to judge those tonal values. Alright, so what we need to do now is start actually mixing our colors. Let's learn how to actually match the colors on the face. So what I'm going to do is, let's go here and let's go and match some of these colors over here. We've got some nice highlights, we've got some nice midtones, and we've got some nice shadows that we can work with. When mixing your colors, what you want to do is find sort of the base or the majority color in the mix. So if I take a look over here, I'm going to look at my paint colors and see which one can I find that's the closest to what I'm trying to mix. So for example, over here I would maybe select, say, a burnt sienna. Maybe a crimson could maybe do the trick. Maybe a cadmium red, and maybe even an orange. So I think let's take, say, the burnt sienna and the crimson and the cadmium orange, and let's give them a bash and see which one is going to get the closest. So we'll put them down on the palette. like that. Alright, let's just mark them. Then we know which ones we're working with. And we definitely need some white, because the color we see on the screen isn't anywhere near as dark as those colors, so let's put a good dollop of white down there. So what I'm using there is the titanium white. So I'll now bring some of each of these colors down onto my palette. Not a lot, just a little bit, because what we're going to do is we're going to do little test patches. So I'll put some of that down there, and then I'm going to add white to each one of them. Now the color that I'm going to try and mix is one of my mid-tone values. So we'll do that. So I don't want it too light and also don't want it too dark. Do that. And that. So now we've given ourselves something to start off with. We're not sure which one yet, it doesn't matter. Now you'll find as you get more confident with the color mixing, it becomes easier to judge which one is the correct color and which one isn't. So now I'm going to take each one of these colors in turn, put it on flat onto the knife like this, so that I've got a nice flat layer of color. Then I'm going to go over to either my reference picture or my screen, and I'm going to judge a mid-tone color. So I think let's choose that. Seems to be quite a nice little mid-tone color over there. So I'll hold my knife up over there, and I'm going to just judge to see what color does it need. So that color there seems to be a little bit more red. So let's go over to our red color and see what he looks like. Well, he's not too bad a match actually. So far our crimson is the best match. Let's go over to the burnt sienna, and he's also not a bad match. So far the burnt sienna was our best match, and the crimson. I'm getting myself all twisted up in my wire here. So let's just see what's going on here. I must keep turning the same direction, eh? There we go. Alrighty. Seeing as those two were the closest match, my crimson and my burnt sienna, I'm going to take, say, some crimson mix and some of the burnt sienna mix, and let's throw them together and see what happens. For all we know, that's going to get us to the color we need. I'll pop him down there. And just mix up an in-between color. Now we can go back to our reference material again and hold him up. Now what I'm going to do now is, at this point, is see what is the paint that I've got at the moment and what does it need to make it look the same as on my reference picture. So in this case I need a bit more red. So let's go and continue adding a little bit of crimson to it at a time, just a little bit at a time. And this is how you're going to continue matching until you've got the same color. Yeah, that's very, very close. So I'm happy with that. So now that I've got the same mix, I can mix up a big pile I can mix up a big pile of that color. So now I know I've got burnt sienna, and I've got a little bit of crimson in there, and I've got quite a lot of white. So I'm going to mix up my new pile next to that one over there, like that. Gradually add some burnt sienna into it until it looks roughly like that, and then I'll match this one by adding the crimson to it. And let's gradually add some crimson to it. Again, you'll see that I'm going to gradually add it, little bit by little bit, until I get to the correct color. Once you feel you're getting close, go back to your reference material and check it there again. Reasonably close, so let's go and give him a check on the reference and see what he looks like. Yeah, still a bit more red to it. There we go. Alright, one color mix. So once we're happy with our color, we can actually just scoop it up and put it one side. Now we can move on to the highlight and the shadow color. Now they are usually variations of our mid-tone value. So I'm going to take a little bit of this and put him down there, and a little bit more and put him down over there. And now we're going to mix a highlight and a shadow version. So let's even do that. I think we'll start with the highlight color. I just tend to do that by habit. So the first thing I'm going to do is just hold him up here against the highlight area, just to get a feel of how much brighter do I need to go. Yeah, it's quite a bit brighter. So I'll start by getting the tonal value correct by adding white. Quite often that'll get me to exactly where I need to be already, but not always. Remember, your skin is reflective, so it will be reflecting some of the sky color that's around it. Okay, we've gone quite a bit lighter now, so let's check him again and see if we've gone light enough. Very close. And now that I'm very close, I'm going to just check the colors as well, because it now seems to have gone a little bit too orangey. So in other words, our model's face is a bit more on the red side. So now I'm going to add a little bit more crimson to it, because I know the crimson is the red in the mix. Okay, so that should give us our highlight color now. Now we can move over to the shadow side. Again, I'll take some of my original basic color, and I'm going to go back to my reference material and, as usual, see what's missing. Try and recognize what color do I need to add to it to get that shadow color. So looking in there, there's definitely a lot more burnt sienna. So let's start adding more burnt sienna to it. Now don't forget, with the shadow color, our color mixing rules say you need to add some of the opposite color to the mix. So let's take that, and let's add a little bit of French ultramarine, because that's the opposite color of brown. Again, just a little bit at a time. So see what that color does. to our mix. I feel it's looking better already. Yeah, we're getting there, and I can also see my shadow color there is starting to look more red. So that means I need to add not just the blue, but I need to add some crimson at the same time. You'll often find when you're mixing your colors for a portrait that you have to mix more than just 3 colors. You sometimes mix 4 to 5 colors to get a nice range of tones. Don't be shy to spend time and get your colors correct. Getting the colors correct is probably half the battle won, because you can paint less detail and you can use all sorts of impressionistic painting techniques in the face. As long as you've got the colors correct, it's going to look pretty close, or it's going to look pretty realistic. And if you've got those proportions correct as well, then obviously that's also going to get you to a realistic portrait. So take your time and get your colors correct. Okay, now what we've done is we've actually mixed our 3 colors. So highlight, mid-tone, and our shadow color. So technically we're actually ready to start painting. Now what we would need to do now is start at a point. Let me just turn this way, if Dennis can just zoom in on me. So before you can start painting, you start at a point, right? So because the windows are the eyes to the soul, I always start with the eyes. That way I can get my focal point of the painting correct and work out my way out from there. Okay, so we're going to start with the eyes today and learn how to paint that. So let's go and take a look at the different features of the eye itself. Let's zoom out a little bit over there. Let's see how far we can zoom in. Let's make that say 40%. Different features. Here we've got the eyebrow itself. Underneath it over here, you see you've got that little recess area where it goes in. So that we call our recess over there. This here is your upper eyelid, and you see it forms a fold over there. Okay. Then you've got the eyelash. The colored section of the eye is called the iris, and in the center, the little black dot is called the pupil. Then on either side of that, we've got the white of the eye, and on the inside of the eye, we've got the tear duct, which keeps our eye moist. Then on the lower eyelid, you'll notice above it there's a little area of the thickness of the eyelid that you can see. That thickness there we call the eyelid wall. Okay. So let's make sure I haven't forgotten everything. Looks like everything. Okay, so before you can start painting, what on earth would you draw? Let's take a look. What you need to do is you draw the main features. So in this case, all these areas in blue are the real main features. The guys that you have to get 100% correct, or they're going to look wrong. Then you've got secondary features which are not quite as prominent. for example, let's take a look over here, the underneath side of the lower eyelid, or this little area here, formed by the eye socket, and this line over here is where the cheek ends and the angle of the nose starts. And here you've got the bridge of the nose. Now let's hide those lines again, and you'll notice, see, none of these lines over here are really hard lines. They what we call lost lines. So you know they're there, but you can't really see them because they're formed by a shading. Okay? So you're going to draw those lost lines in as softly as you can, because you don't want them to shine through in your final drawing. But yeah, if this edge here of the eye, if he shines through a little bit, the ones in blue, if they shine through a little bit, it won't matter, because you're going to have sharp edges and stuff over there anyway. See, like there in the fold, it's a sharp line anyway. So if you'd want to draw those features in, you can draw them in a little bit darker than the rest. Now take a tip from a fool: when you're doing the eyebrow, always draw it in smaller than what you think you need. So take a look over there. You see how I've made the line formed by the shape of the eyebrow? I've made it a lot smaller. I've noticed that when you're painting the eyebrows, you tend to enlarge the size of it. So by drawing the shape of it in smaller, that helps you to keep, in the end of the day, when you finish painting it and you've by habit gone and enlarged it, then at least you know he hasn't suddenly become a real bushy eyebrowed person. Alrighty, so what I've done is, you can draw your, let's zoom back out here to the video. Take your main features and draw them out. Now I'm not going to go into the drawing techniques here. What I've done is, in the notes, I've gone into that in a lot of detail, but in the class we won't have enough time, so go through it in your notes. If you do have questions, just pop them on the forum and I'll answer them for you there. Draw the main features out, and then get them as accurate as you can, because remember, the more accurate you draw, the more accurate your final painting is going to be. So then what I've done is, I've taken my drawing on my paper and I've put it up against a window so that it shines through. So I've got the glass at the back there. Then I've rubbed over it on this side over here with a watercolor pencil. So now what can happen is, I can put this paper down onto my canvas in the place where I want it, and I can trace off my outlines that I want, and I know the lines that are coming through on the back are from the watercolor pencil. So that means if I need to move them or erase them or anything like that, I can, using a brush that I've dipped in water, or a cloth that I've dipped in water. So that's what I'm going to do now, is just transfer my drawing. Now sometimes you'll find that the features have got different colors, so what you can do is you can actually use different color watercolor pencils, so that in the end of the day, if your lines do shine through, then at least you know the color that's shining through is the correct color. I'm just using a plain pen. Now obviously when you're drawing, put a piece of masking tape over there just to form a hinge, and that way you'll be able to lift up your picture and make sure that you've drawn all your lines. And obviously you want to make sure that it can't move as well. With me working with the different colors like this on a pen, I'm also able to see where I've drawn over. Don't be shy to use different colored pens on the top of the drawing. Alrighty, so there's my drawing done. So the only thing that we haven't mixed so far for this eye is the actual eye color itself. So let's go and take a look at our picture again. You see our model's got very dark brown eyes. So let's zoom in and go and take a look at what color his eyes really are. I think let me also just open up another photo of an eye. Okay. Your eye itself is a big ball which fits inside the eye socket, right? So when you're painting it, you've got this entire rounding piece over here that you need to show. Then you'll find that the iris is an absolute perfect circle. So we're going to paint it we've got to draw it in a perfect circle. But now looking at the photograph, you can take a look and you'll see that the eyelids overlap the iris. So let's draw in the full circle like that. So when you're drawing in your model's iris, always take a look and see how much does it overlap. So what I tend to do is I draw the full circle in, and then when I've done with the drawing work, then I go and erase this little extra piece at the top here. If you make the classic mistake and you paint in or you draw your iris in so that it fits in perfectly between the two eyelids, it looks like your model's got a huge fright. Let me go and show you. I think I've got an example here where somebody has done that. See that? You can immediately see it looks like the guy's busy watching a horror movie on TV or something like that, eh? So never do that. Always make sure that you get that little overlapping correct. Then your pupil, the pupil itself fits in exactly in the center of the iris. See that? So that's why I also draw in the full circle to get my pupil in. Let's go and hide those guys again. And let's go and take a look and see what the color of the eye is. The outside edge of the iris is darker, and so I always choose my colors here around the center somewhere. Let's go and get an average color that's going on around there. Let's draw a block so you can see what that color looks like. So I've now picked up that color. So notice it's like a pretty dull color. Even with our previous eye, you'll notice that it wasn't a very bright color. So you have to be careful with that. It's a classic mistake. The guys mix the iris color way too bright, and then you'll find that it makes the whole portrait look unnatural, simply because your eye is not expecting such a bright color, or your brain isn't expecting to see such a bright color. So I've taken a bit of top of my head, it looks like some burnt sienna and some French ultramarine to get that color there. So I'm going to take a look at that and see what it looks like. Yeah, reasonably close. It needs just a touch of white in it to lighten it. That should do the trick. I'm not going to try and get this 100% correct, simply because of the time constraints. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so let's go and paint an eye. The most important part of the eye when you paint it to get it correct is the iris pupil area. So I'm going to start with that to make sure I get that correct. I'm going to be using a soft full bit brush like this. That's my favorite tool for painting portraits. It's nice soft bristles. You find because your face is one entire shading, that this nice soft full bit brush like this works quite well. So I'll alternate between this and my fine round brush. So I'll start by painting in the color of the iris. When you get to these edges, work very careful. Remember, you need to get that perfectly round in the end of the day. So if you need to go over to your fine round to get this right, then go for it, do it. Okay, so once you've got him blocked in, what you're going to do is we need to darken that outside edge. If you remember from the photograph, you see we had that little darker outside edge over there. So I'm going to take my original iris color and just darken him up some more. Now remember, in this case we had French ultramarine and burnt sienna in the mix. So I'm going to continue adding French ultramarine just to darken it. A little bit more. There we go. So I've just quickly mixed it on the palette. I don't need much, so I'm just going to mix a little amount like that. On this outside edge over here, carefully on the edge, I'm going to paint that in using my fine round brush. Now again, I'm following the circle. See, at the bottom, slightly overlapping, so it's not quite as broad over there. Alright, now what you do is you take the worst paint off your brush and fade this in. So I've just taken off the worst paint of the brush. You don't need to wash it. And I'm just getting rid of that inside line over there, just so that it forms a very quick little shading over there. You don't want him to fade out too long, otherwise you lose all that lovely color that you've got there in the center. Then you'll notice that you get the lines in the eye. Now, a classic mistake the guys make is to paint them in as wagon wheels. In other words, a long solid line from the outside all the way to the inside. Now that's why they never look right. So what you got to do is paint them in short little flicks of varying length and directly towards the center. In other words, at right angles to the outside edge of the eye. Just suggest a few, all different, very random little distances and stuff in between each other. Rather make them unnoticeable than make them too obvious. Then you'll find, because the top eyelid has got height, remember this little eyelid wall that we've got over here, the top eyelid's got the same, but we can't see it. So what that height does is it throws a shadow on this top area on the iris over there. Now shadows fade out the further away they are from an object, so I'm going to put it in nice and sharp against the eyelid and quickly just fade it away like that. And that's going to give me the height of the upper eyelid. Next we can pop in the iris. Now notice what's happened, because our circle goes past the top eyelid, our iris, or the pupil, isn't in the center of the eye anymore. Now the pupil itself is pitch black. So the easiest way of getting to pitch black is take your French ultramarine and you can either add in crimson and yellow, in other words your three primary colors, or you can use French ultramarine and raw umber, throw them together, and that's going to give you what we call a Payne's grey. Roughly 50-50. So I don't need much, I'll just mix up a little that. That'll give me a nice dark color like that. It'll give me a black. You can use tube black. I'll forgive you in the pupil if you use tube black, but you must just promise me to only use it in the pupil, nowhere else. Okay, so let's clean the brush. When I paint him in, again I'm going to be really careful to stick to on the line. If I've, when painting the iris, lost my circle a bit, then start here in the center and work your way out until it's gradually the correct size. You make your pupil too small, then it makes either the light look too bright, or it makes your subject look sad, believe it or not. When you're sad, your pupils contract. There we go, like that. If you make the pupil too big, then it either looks like your model's got a fright, or it's really dark in the room, or is using some drugs that he shouldn't be using. Okay, now in front of the iris we've got this cornea, the see-through little cornea piece over there. So to show that, what you do is just take a little bit of a lighter version of your iris color. So I'm busy with a brown, so I'm just going to be able to add a little bit of white to it, so just to mix a lighter version, like so. Now in this photograph, our light is coming from the right hand side, so what will happen is the light will go through that cornea, reflect off the iris onto the cornea over here. So we're going to add a little shading over there with a lighter version of the iris color. So that's sort of going to create a little bit of a 3D effect there for us already. Nothing too hectic, it's very subtle, just like that. Now let's move on to the white of the eye. You'll notice that on each side, in other words the left hand white and the right hand white, are not perfectly white. It depends on the pigment of the person's skin and their age. So you'll tend to find that the skin becomes, or the white of the eye is, with European people, tends to be a little red. The minute you move to, say, African people, older ones, you'll find that the white of the eye becomes more yellow, like a yellow ochre color. So just look out for that. And then because the one side is like this and the other side is like this, because your eye is round, this side catches more light and that side becomes darker. Then we also have the thing of your eye is round like this too, right? So this side maybe be lighter, and that side on each half will also have a different tone. Now be careful when you're doing the red, is don't make it too red, or it's going to look like the guy had a really hectic night at the pub last night. I'm going to just block him in. So at the moment he's flat. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shade him. I'm going to use a little bit of my Payne's grey into the white of the eye color, and that's going to give me a nice shadow color for the and that's going to give me a nice shadow color for the white of the eye. Our light's coming from the top, so I know this bottom area here has got to go darker, so I'll shade him in over there. And for the same reason as we had over here by the iris, the top of the eye is also going to catch a little shadow because of the thickness of the eyelid. So I'm going to pop him in. And into that little corner there is going to go darker too. Then I'll take some pure white or even some sky color. So you can maybe add a little bit of say cadmium yellow to that. And I'm going to add a highlight in this area because this area here is the area that's closer to the sun. And that will complete the rounding on that off. Get this idea just a little bit dark in that corner there. Okay. Now we can move on to the other side. Now remember, he's a little bit more in shadow because he's further away from the sun. So we're going to use a bit more of a shadowy color. So again, I'll continue to add a bit of Payne's grey into there with the red and white, just to tone him down, to get him a bit more grey. So I'll block him in with that, all the way up here to the tear duct. Oops. That happens when you work fast, eh? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so now we'll shade away this furthest point over here. And add the shadow by the upper eyelid. Okay, and we'll go a little bit darker here by the tear duct. Now to get the tear duct correct, I'm going to just go back to my reference material, check the color, adjust it as necessary, and then I'll continue from there. Now the tear duct is skin color. Now look what I'm doing. I'm going to take some of the one color and the color next to it, and I'm quickly making myself an impromptu mix. So just a little bit of the color that I need. And let's face it, your tear duct is such a small little area. I don't need lots of that paint. So I'm going to just mix a tiny amount of it. So that's something that you're going to be doing throughout the whole painting process. Is you're going to be doing little quick mixes like this, continually adjusting your colors. A little bit this way, a little bit that way to get them just right. So we'll pop that in over there. And now because our tear duct itself isn't flat, it's also got some shape to it. It needs a shadow color. So I'm going to take some of my darker skin tone. Again, just add a little bit more ultramarine to it just to darken it up. And that will give me a nice real dark shadow. On the area away from the light. Like that, and that's given it its depth. Now we can move on and start painting the upper eyelid. So I'm going to wash my brush. Now let's go back to our reference picture again. Take a look on the upper eyelid. You'll see that it's highlighted on the one side, darker and darker and darker, because it's round, right? But then you'll also see that because you've got this fold over here, that it goes darker in towards that fold and then lighter as it comes out, like that. So we've got quite a few shadings to do there. So you're going to have to really look carefully when you're doing these, the upper eyelid, to get the correct colors in the correct places. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm not going to try and get a perfect shading or anything. I'm first just going to put the correct colors in the correct places. So I've got that over there. And again, I'm going to continue to do little impromptu in-between mixes to get these tonal values correct. Man, it does seem to go a little bit lighter to this side here as well. Even lighter over here. Then there's a little bit of a highlight color over here. on that edge over there, like that. To get the fold area correct, I'm going to use my darkest mix. I'm going to make him even darker by adding ultramarine to it. And I'll put him in. You see what I'm doing? I'm just putting the correct colors in the correct places. Goes from here, and from here it gradually just fades away. So I'll stop him over there. You see what's happened? So I'll just get a feel for how my actual eye shadings need to go. So from here I'm going to actually fade them in. So I've cleaned my brush, dried it off. So you don't need to wash the brush completely. Just wipe off that excess paint on your kitchen towel. And a fine little area like this, the easiest way of shading them in is using a little tapping motion like this. Just tap it until the line disappears on you. If you move from one area of color to the next, just keep wiping your brush clean on your kitchen roll. That way you're going to make sure your colors stay nice and vibrant, and they don't all become one solid boring color. This area over there, I've got that little piece coming out there. Whenever I need to, I'm cleaning my brush. As we come out of there, the shading disappears, so I'm going to put in lighter colors until it eventually disappears on us. Here, this little piece of skin formed by the tear duct also goes, got a little bit of overlap over there. So I'll pop him in. Just a quick little shading. Okay, that should do the trick for there. Alright, let's move on to the lower eyelid. What's going to happen now is it's pretty much more of the same. Look at your colors, compare them with what you've done before, and put them down in the correct places. this area over here is this color over here. Then it goes lighter, actually quite quickly, to there. Until eventually in this area over here I've got a highlight. I actually notice over there is going even lighter than a highlight. It's a real reflective little piece there. So I'm going to add even more white there. Like that. And I think while I'm at it, we may as well pop that piece in as well, eh? So here goes there. Now notice we've got that little bit of a crease over there, so I'll avoid that area for now. In other words, I'm leaving myself almost like a little bit of a line over there. And then we can blend them. Okay, and just using a tapping motion. When you get to bigger areas like the cheek, then you're about to use more of a stroke motion, but small areas like this, it's better to just use a bit of a tapping motion. Very gentle, there's absolutely no pressure involved. Yeah, these two fade into each other. So now I'm going to start working on that little line over there. So see what happens. Here I'm going to let them disappear. And as we get to this area over here, it becomes a bit more of a pronounced line. So depending on the age of the person you're painting, this pronounced line here could eventually become bags under the eyes. So I'll gradually bring these guys closer to each other. Like this. And those differences in color is going to form a line for me. If I do find the line disappears a little bit, well, then you just come back in with your fine liner, your fine round brush, and you just darken him up. like that. Alright, now that we've got a good feel for the eye, I think let's quickly put in the wall of the eye. Again, because he's round, you see he's not a flat object, he's going to shade. So take a careful look and just get a feel for the colors. Put the correct colors in the correct places and fade them away into each other. Notice on this cornea everything sort of seems to be converging to the similar color. Now if you look on your reference photo, you'll see that's exactly what's happening. So that's fine. If that happens on your painting and you're following carefully with the colors on your photo, then that's fine. It's normal. Don't worry about it. Okay, I think it's time we give our eye a little bit of life. So I think you'll agree, it looks okay, but it's not alive yet. And the reason for that is that our eye is absolutely bone dry. There's not a drop of moisture in that eye. So we need to sort that out quickly. Now the way we show that moisture in the eye is by reflecting the sky color in it. Now in this painting our light is coming from the right hand side, so I'm going to take some sky color or even just pure white, but you're welcome to add a little bit of sky blue or a little bit of yellow into it depending on what time of the day it is. Put a main reflection in halfway across the pupil and the iris, like that over there. Now you see I'm using a huge amount of paint because I don't want it to mix with those colors that are there. Then I'm going to take less paint on the brush and add a secondary reflection on the opposite side of the iris. Remember there where we added that little cornea piece in roughly the same area. Now follow the shape of the iris to get that right. And you see, just by doing that, immediately our eye looks alive, eh? Dennis has just picked up that the right hand side of the iris is not quite a perfect circle, which I haven't been able to see working from the side. So all I'm going to do is going to just come back in and just carefully re-establish the circle here again. Is that better? Now Big Chief is happy. Great stuff. Thank you for pointing that out. So it's not always easy for me to see working from the side, because the perspective messes you around, eh? Just going to soften this one up ever so slightly. That should do the trick. Alrighty, let's continue and do the recess area and the eyebrow. So I've got a little dark area over here, that, which then actually quickly lightens up as it comes around here. And to here, that, till eventually in this area here it becomes a highlight. Now you'll notice this area of the eyebrow over here, if you look on the skull, it's got that little bit of a hump over there. So you'll notice that this area on the skull actually, or this area by the eyebrow, becomes quite bright. Let's blend them in. Very carefully getting this line away there now. A sharp line like that is going to give us distance. So I want to get that nice fold in there. So I don't want to lose the line, but I want them to just meet. I don't want to have any white canvas areas shining through there either. As it comes through here, it gets brighter because now the nose is starting to pick up some height in this area. Right. the side of the nose over here. He's in highlight, so we're going to get him nice and the brightest color. We'll get him blocked in over there. Yeah, no, still getting there. Thank you. And I'm just going to give a little bit of an indication of the rounding of the nose, just so that we've got just a feeling of perspective in there. Not going to do any too much hassle over there. All we're trying to do is just get rid of the white of the canvas all the way around. Okay, and here's our eyebrow comes in over here. Now, because of the eyebrow hairs themselves, they throw a shadow on this piece over here. So you've got a highlight, and then immediately after that, a little bit of a shadow. And then from there you get the rest of the forehead. Okay, that's going to be good enough. I could fine tune it a little while longer, but for brevity's sake, I think what you've done is what we've done here is we've seen the technique. So let's quickly add some eyelashes and the eyebrows in, and then we should be done. When you're doing the eyebrows and the eyelashes, what's important there is to look out for the actual directions. Really important, because these directions give you the perspective. So what I do is I first just flick in just a few, just to give me a feel for the direction. So there's one there, and these guys seem to come quite down like this. And then from here they start flicking upwards. Up, up, and here they change direction. And you'll also notice that there's a lot more eyelashes on the top eyelid and less on the bottom eyelid. Now what these eyelashes do is they'll come out separate, and then they tend to clump together. Not quite sure why they do that, but they do. Even if you haven't got, like say you're a man and you haven't got eye mascara or all that funny stuff on it, it still tends to clump together. Just quick little flicks. Again, I don't try and necessarily paint every single eyelash. I just try and get myself an impression of those eyelashes. And that's good enough. Okay, on the bottom eyelid, you'll find that these eyelashes, they come out, or they start growing from the base of the eyelid wall. So start them from there and work them out. I'm constantly looking at my reference material to get my angles right. In the beginning, what I'll do is I'll always put in just a few, just to give me a feel for the directions. Here when they change direction, they also tend to just taper off on this bottom eyelid. So I'm just going to add a few little eyelashes in here like this. To get this thin line, I pick up my paint in a chisel point. Let's just have a quick look. A little bit light over here, so I'm just going to pull him up. This gentleman's got quite a few dark eyelashes in this area here. That should do the trick. Alrighty, let's move on to the eyebrow itself. The eyebrow is really easy once you've done the eyelashes because it's more of the same. So use that little shape that you drew in. Now start off by just getting a feel for the directions of the eyelashes, and then use the eye itself just to get a feel for the positioning. In other words, I would compare, let's say here by the tear duct, above it my eyelashes are doing this, heading in that direction there. Here, heading in that direction there. And then as we curl around, they start heading in that direction there like that. So that's usually what I'll do. I just put in a few of these, you can almost say planning eyelashes, just to get my directions correct. And then once I'm happy, then I'll continue flicking in and build up a nice mass. I think what I should do is just cover that little bit of canvas that we've got over there. Here along the edge they gradually start tapering out, so just add a few. Yeah, they start changing direction, actually start pointing straight up here by the nose. I'm filling in the center area reasonably full because that's where it's quite bushy, so I don't want too much skin color shining through over there. So again, you can see I'm not trying to paint every single eyelash perfectly, just creating that impression. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Okay. As I said, it was a busy day today. Alright. Your homework for today is in your notes. You're going to see that there's a whole bunch of different eyes. Pick one, paint that, and post it on the forum. I can't wait to see what your eye looks like, because my chat box bombed out on me today. So just ask your questions for me on the forum and we'll answer them there. I'll send everybody an email with the notes that you can go and download. It's a nice big download. Good surprise waiting for you guys there. So next week we're going to paint the eye. We've just done the eye. Next week we're going to paint the nose. So I'll see you then. Thank you very much for joining us for today's class. Have a great week.
Basket TV.